someone who's made a movie a lot more recently. Spike Lee made Black Klansman just a brief, 2 years ago? Was it 3 years?
2018.
Yeah, no, 2 years. And he dropped The Five Bloods on Netflix just this past week, or this past Friday, not even a week ago. We watched it. I think we both liked it. But did we love it, Dave? Did you love this movie?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Honestly, I thought it was really awesome.
Yeah,
it's a long film that doesn't feel long. Like I think it really nails everything Spike's going for, and is also quite similar to Black Klansman in terms of the way it ties into current events and stuff. But yeah, I thought Five Bloods was awesome.
I completely agree. I'm actually probably going to be processing this live because I just think there's so many like themes and metaphors that are told throughout this story, in terms of blackness and black society, as well as United States government, United States at war, as in imperialist almost. I guess it wasn't imperialist war in Vietnam. I don't know if that's how you would refer to it, but certainly us
right.
Invading their
stopping communism. That's right. What we were doing back then.
if that's what you want to call it, I'm with it. But I guess just to kind of break this down, you have these five black soldiers in the Vietnam War. Paul, Otis, Eddie, Melvin, and Storm and Norman, who is not what in the modern story that's being told, but in the flashbacks, who are sent to recover the whatever's being brought by this plane in Vietnam, the CIA plane that was shot down. They go to get it. They find out that it was gold that was going to be given to the people in the village who were helping the American soldiers at that time. Yeah. They lose Storm and Norman in the counterattack by the Vietnam Army.
VC.
And then they lose the gold. So they go back, 50 years later to recover it. They find it, and it's kind of about their journey through Vietnam and to recover this gold. I gotta say, I think all the performances are really good, but you gotta start with Delroy. Delroy Lindo as Paul just, I think, steals the show with this. He gets the most to do, obviously, too, but I think his character just kind of blew me away. How did you feel about Delroy Lindo in this?
Oh, yeah. Paul is the most important character in the movie, and that's because he's representing so many things at once, right? He's a black Trump supporter, which is a rare but real thing. I think about 10-12% of black men voted for Trump in 2016. And why they did, those reasons are very deep and intricate, right? On top of that, Paul is a veteran suffering from some severe forms of PTSD, like most Vietnam vets did. And on top of that, once again, he also was kind of unable to lose the antagonism and xenophobia that he had when he was in Vietnam. You see that he's still using racial slurs towards the Vietnam people he's encountering when he returns and stuff like that, right? And I think Paul is he's just so rich and represents so many things in the film. And it all really kind of comes home at the end when he's giving a direct-to-camera monologue when he's alone in the jungle at the end. And yeah, and Delroy, of course, is just totally committed to it, and honestly, really great. And watching him devolve and take control of the group, and then go off on his own, I was kind of blown away. That was awesome.
And I think the way that the character is revealed throughout the story is really well done, because, like you said, some of those things are kind of at the forefront. That he's a black male Trump supporter, that he is suffering from a severe form of PTSD, that I think he has other mental health issues that are definitely coming up while he's journeying through the jungle. But then when you kind of see why or where some of this comes from, this hardness, how he lost his wife when his son was born, and she was like one of the only things in his life that he really felt like he loved. The other person he felt like he loved was Storm and Norman, and he accidentally shot him when the Vietnam counteroffensive came for the downed plane, and the guilt that he has from that, and seeing that all kind of those layers be pulled back, and watching Delroy's Paul devolve as you're learning these things, and then kind of come to some sense of peace before he gets absolutely Swiss cheese at the end. Just I thought it was expertly told by Spike Lee, expertly performed by Delroy Lindo. I mean, if I know that they pushed the Academy Awards back, but I feel like he's got to be up there for a nomination, because just blew me away with that performance. What other performances really struck you from this film?
Uh, I really like Norm Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was pretty good. He also represent like there's a lot going on in Five Bloods, right? Like he's bringing like opioid dependence by veterans into the film, right? There's so much stuff, right? He's also bringing biracial relationships
Mm-hmm.
into this. And I think something that a lot of people don't know about in terms of like the racism uh, black Asians faced, after what was it, like 30,000 black GIs had kids over in Vietnam over 10 years. Like that's kind of like a piece of history like that we don't really get taught a whole lot about, like the everything with Soul Alley, right? And that's another thing. It's just kind of in the movie, and it's done in a really warm way. And I really liked how that all comes together. And Norm Lewis, who's our sorry, not Norm Lewis. I'm thinking of Clark Peters. Clark Peters is just kind of a like veteran presence, just having him be there and sell all these different themes, especially as he's kind of the one butting heads with Delroy when
Mm-hmm.
things start to go south. Really liked him too. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because I was looking into this, and initially they were targeting Samuel L. Jackson, Giancarlo Esposito, and Don Cheadle for some of the lead roles. And they all didn't come together. I think Esposito was actually announced for the film and had to drop out. So those are obviously much more famous black actors than the ones we have here. These are a lot of character actors that are carrying this film, but don't really mind. I thought everyone was really good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Clark Peters, I think, especially for me, really stood out. And I thought it was interesting um, to see the two ways that these kind of characters go about something, right? So Norman as Storm and Norman to these guys is kind of like this idealistic
Yeah,
soldier to them.
the
And
Martin
this,
and the Malcolm, as they say.
right, exactly. And that's the thing, is that you either have that idea of like, we need to fight back and push back and don't trust anybody and take things with force, or we work together, we rely on our allies, and we kind of come together to beat some bigger force, as like these general undertones about how the group splits up after Eddie's death. And I thought that was just really really fascinating, and especially with Paul's son David, played by Jonathan Majors, choosing to go, against his father in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of portraying those different generations, seeing different ways of going about things, and about how isolation doesn't really work if you want to achieve these goals, or overcome these obstacles. So I thought that was really fascinating how it played out. I actually was a bit sad that Chadwick Boseman had such a small role in this. I was hoping to see him get a bit more time to shine, but I thought every time he got to perform, he was great.
Yeah, he really sells it because I think one of the cool things with this movie that Spike does is there's 4 different aspect ratios, and we go all the way down to a 16 millimeter shot when we're going back to our flashbacks when we're actually in the jungle fighting in Vietnam. And Chadwick, just kind of the energy he's bringing to the role of Storm and Norman, because we're learning about him through everyone else's memory. Again, like it's a really idealistic person, and I think Chadwick, he's given a lot of speeches in his career, and he's just kind of really good at orating the themes of a movie to you, right? And I think probably my favorite part with him is when you get a Hanoi Hannah giving the propaganda, letting them know that Martin Luther King was assassinated, and then seeing all their rage, right? And again, another thing that Five Bloods is doing is explicitly telling you about the racism that black GIs faced, both in the army and, of course, when they went back to America, and just kind of seeing that rage after king was killed, and Norman kind of backing everyone off the ledge, right? It's just
Mhm.
like, yeah, Chadwick was fantastic, and I actually really liked him right at the end too when he comes back, kind of like in a vision to
Yeah,
to
Delroy.
to Delroy, and he's like, "We gotta talk about this, blood," and he like
Hmm.
he lifts up his shirt, and then you realize that he was got but that friendly fire.
Hmm.
So yeah, man, he was really awesome. Shout out Jonathan Majors, man. He was fucking jacked in this, man. I don't know if he
Yeah,
was always jacked because in Black Man in San Francisco, he's wearing that big baggy suit the whole time.
hmm,
But God, he was ripped. It
yeah.
just really stood out.
And I really loved the scene where he stepped on that trip mine and he's just kind of
Mm,
like waiting there after Eddie gets blown up. And, Paul, his dad comes over and they're talking about who is the sprinter at Morehouse.
right.
Ah, crap, I'm forgetting his name. But the way that they're talking about like how he took 13 strides instead of 15 between all the
Yeah, the
hurdles and
hurdles.
he could
Hmm.
fly. I was like, oh man, this it's really. And then they cut back and they show it, and that's something else they do a lot. And they Spike did in Black Klansman as well, would be that when they would talk about something that happened in the past or referring to something that a person, they would actually show the person and cut back and show footage or a picture or something like that. So I thought that was a great scene, but also a great touch from Spike throughout this. Shout out Paul Walter Hauser,
Of course.
uh, coming off his performance as Richard Jewell, getting that bit role, but still just find him always funny whenever he's on screen. I also
He's
really
good.
liked um, Melanie Thierry, who
Yeah.
played Hetty. I thought she was great. I don't know what else.
Uh,
Soundtrack was awesome. This is something I actually wanted to bring up.
yeah, Marvin Gaye has a big presence
Yes.
in this film in the beginning and the end. Um, I saw people joking about two nominations for supporting actor, Delroy Lindo and Marvin Gaye.
Man, when they isolated his voice and what's going on, as Paul starts to walk through the jungle and the other Bloods go their own way, I thought that was so well done. Got goosebumps watching that scene, and I thought just the use of Marvin Gaye as like this voice embodying that time, but also like the message to now and how relevant this all still is. Unfortunately, was really, really just great by Spike. I mean, this is him at his strongest. I feel like.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. This is the most expensive movie Spike Lee's ever made, 45 million dollars, and he pitched this to every studio in the town, and no one wanted to make it, so he made it with Netflix. And notable, no de-aging effects for those flashback scenes. The guys are just playing themselves once again, and they look exactly the same age, and it just doesn't matter because that's how we used to film flashbacks, just or
Mhm.
So
Until the very end when they show that picture of them at the very
sure,
very end. But
right.
yeah, no,
Which if you don't have autoplay disabled, you're not going to see
yeah.
that post credits. But yeah, I mean, this was planned to have a con out of competition premiere too, and obviously that was kaput due to COVID. But I saw it was number one on Netflix's top 10 on Sunday,
Hmm.
so I'm curious just how many people are going to be watching this because Spike Lee's made a lot of movies. Some of them have been hits, like Black Klansman and Inside Man. A lot of them have not been hits. He's kind of almost, I think, at his most mainstream right now. And obviously being on the front page of Netflix certainly helps in that regard. Another thing I was thinking about too is, the gold, the big framing of the movie and the plot. That's quickly positioned as like it's a form of reparations for
Hmm.
these black vets that obviously, as I think Delroy puts it, had a hard time when they came back from the war, right? And I thought that was interesting. And then seeing that come back into the fold at the end when the Vietnam guys that are sent to get the gold instead from Jean Renault, they're like, no, this is ours. This is through the Vietnamese, and like they kind of saw it as reparations for their people as well.
Hmm.
And the whole time I was kind of thinking of like this kind of reminded me of like Nazi gold and like the
Mm.
ethics of the spoils of war and stuff like that. Again, there's just so many themes to this, and even though the movie's 2.5 hours long, it doesn't feel long because there's so much to go through. And the film uses so many, I think, important flashbacks, history clips and stuff at the beginning and the end, a lot like Black Klansman. But I think really it was really effective in the beginning for the Five Bloods because you get Muhammad Ali talking about why he wouldn't go fight,
Yep.
and then you get LBJ and you get Nixon speeches, you get Black Panther speeches, you get Malcolm X, you get the famous assassination clip of the guy getting shot in the head in Vietnam, right? Like there's so many like the rape of Nanking. There's so much really visceral shit right in the beginning, and um, Spike. I always like that about what Spike's doing of late. I think some people don't appreciate the lack of subtlety with it, but I kind of like how he's able to weave a movie with so many themes around this kind of historical highlight reel. So yeah, man,
Yeah.
I think the movie's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Probably my favorite movie of the year. It's right up there with Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which technically is a 2019 movie, but I'm counting for 2020. Um, I want to just shout out that they filmed this in Chi Minh City, a lot of it, Bangkok, and then Chiang Mai, and
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that it felt very much like they were, there. Like I obviously wasn't directly, on location, but I think close enough where you really got that feel that they were in an
Yeah,
Asian location, which I appreciated. I mean, there's nothing more I have to say. This movie fucking rocked.
yeah. I guess the only thing quibble with is like I think everyone saw the landmines coming up. You saw that coming when Norm Lewis steps on one to die. It's kind of like operatic thing. It's like, and here we go, boom. Like,
Yeah.
because we had the red herring when you meet the people that are there to get rid of landmines. It's like, all right. Didn't mind it though, because it's really effective in the way they tell the story. And I guess the other thing is the way they find the gold is super coincidental, right?
Yeah.
Jonathan Majors is going to take a piss and or take a shit and he's going to dig and he digs right onto the bar, right? And like, oh wait, here they are. There's that canyon from the battle. We're right here. We almost got it. So it's like that was a little circumstantial, but it's a movie. It's fine.
No, for sure. Certainly, I think a fair critique of it. But honestly, man, I thought this was great. Quick question. So Spike Lee, obviously very famous director, finally won an Academy Award, 2019 Oscars. Where's this in your Spike Lee favorite films? I mean, I think Do the Right Thing, probably my favorite, and then Black Klansman, then this for me, but it's all really close.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of like the really lauded early stuff like Crooklyn or Clockers. I haven't seen those. But yeah, there's kind of like a apex for him, right? It's Do the Right Thing, Inside Man, Malcolm X.
No, that's right.
Those are probably the biggest ones. Those are the
Yeah.
biggest hits, the most well seen, most widely seen ones. He Got Game, also very popular. Yeah, I still need to see a lot of his movies, but it's up there. I thought this was honestly works on just about every level, and I again was just blown away by just how many different important and still resonant themes he's able to weave into the story. So yeah, it's up there. And the thing about Spike Lee, like I was saying, he's just about as mainstream as he's ever been.
Yeah.
And it's weird, but that also tells you the way movie making works. He's coming off of one of his biggest hits that he won an Academy Award for, and he still can't get this movie made by a traditional studio. And it's only costing $35 to $45 million. It's not actually that expensive.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, I think we'll wrap up there. Watch The Five Bloods.